Thank you.
If you'll just allow me to share,
How do I do that? Hold on. More.
and maybe if you
If
make
I
me
make you a
co-host,
host, I think
yeah,
that'll do it. Yep. Oh no, not change host, co-host.
I think you can also, there's usually a button next to share that lets you do edit things, and one of them is let everybody present.
perfect. Nope, that worked.
Thank you. Okay, we're in. Great.
We
Thanks,
are
everyone.
cool. All right. Hi, everybody. Whoops. I was just moving things around. We've forgotten everything from COVID times, right? Just joking. So my name is Lindsay Coates, and I'm the Senior Associate Director of Employer Engagement at St. Anselm College, as Emily mentioned. Emily and I have known each other for a really, really long time, over a decade, right?
We don't like to talk about the length.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've been working in careers. I started off as an adjunct faculty member. Just a quick synopsis: working at an arts college, and worked closely with our design majors, and which also had a little bit of UX in it. And so I kind of know UX tangentially through Emily and her and our other colleague, Karen Mayu, but have been kind of working in the space of careers since about 2014. So I've seen a lot of changes, and just wanted to be a kind of a sounding board, give you some, of course, we're going to be talking about applicant tracking systems and AI, and kind of helping your applications stand out from the rest. But also kind of, I wanted to open it up in the Q&A for any other questions. The other thing I will say is that any other kind of questions beyond resumes, Lauren and I are happy to answer. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Lauren to introduce herself.
Thank you, Lindsay and Emily, and thank all of you for letting me and Lindsay be here tonight. I'm Lauren Burrows. I'm the director of the Career Development Center at St. Anselm College. I just met Emily, but I've known Lindsay for a number of years. She and I are part of NH which is an organization that brings career professionals from New Hampshire schools together. But I've been working officially with Lindsay for a little over a year, which has been really wonderful. I have been in career services or in working in career in some capacity for a little over a decade, in a number of different public, private institutions. I serve as a generalist, so a lot of knowledge about a lot of different industries, and the resumes and cover letters and applications that really make folks stand out in a lot of different industries, which I think is helpful because, as I'm sure all of you know, it's not a one size fits all kind of situation. And so being able to work and support students and professionals at all levels through my experiences has been helpful to help people kind of figure out how to navigate their specific circumstances and experiences and skills, and to really leverage those into next steps and positions and things of that matter. I've been at St. Anselm College. It will be 7 years in August, which seems hard to believe, but I'm thrilled to be joining all of you today. And to piggyback off what Lindsay said, I'm happy to talk about what's in the presentation, but because both Lindsay and I serve as career service professional generalists, I'm happy to answer any questions as it relates to careers, networking, follow-up, interviews, anything within that realm that I can be helpful for. So please don't hesitate to utilize and ask any question that might be of help to you.
Thank you. And oh, my keyboard's not working. Okay, goals for today. I mean, as as Emily said, we're going to run through this pretty quickly. Again, I'll also share the slide deck with her, so she can distribute it or get it out to you. So because there's a lot of content in here and more than we can do over 15 minutes. But we wanted to start off with some quick do's and don'ts to really kind of capture some of the advice that you all might have for each other, knowing your industry, talking a little bit about AI and applicant tracking systems, the purpose of them, making connections, as Lauren said, with your own experiences. Then some final kind of resume tips that go over like content and formatting that can really kind of work for a applicant tracking systems, just so you can put your best foot forward. And then some final takeaways. But I'm going to have to pop off of screen mode here to really kind of capture some of yours. So feel free to just take out. I'm going to try and make this a little bit bigger just so we can kind of add it on here. Move things around. But just kind of shout out some of the tips or things that you've found helpful. I'll record those just so we can start off a baseline. As Lauren said, both of us are career central or career services professional or generalists. So every industry has things that are kind of specific, whether it be do's or don'ts that you've seen that might be helpful. So, okay, who has one? A do or a don't? And I'll write them all down.
I'll break the ice, Lindsay.
Okay.
One piece of advice I got when I was applying was to take the job description of the role you're applying for and use some of those phrases on your resume itself.
Yep.
Very important.
Yes.
We'll get into that. So more to come.
What else have people heard? I'll start off with
I'll throw one out.
Yeah.
So I have been hearing a lot about making, as you're describing past roles and accomplishments, leading that off with business metrics. So really putting in context anything tangible about improvements and what that turned into in terms of business bottom lines. The UX is really needing to defend itself in terms of business outcomes, and so highlighting that right up front in the resume is becoming critical.
Oops. No, defiance. Yeah.
Anything quantifiable.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. What about length? What have you all heard about length of your resume?
Ideally 1 page.
I've heard that. I've also heard that depending on how tenured you are, you can go beyond 1 page as well. But
so what do you feel like the
I don't know how I
cutoff
feel
would
about
be?
that. What was the last thing you said?
I was just wondering, like, what do you feel like the cutoff would be?
Last summer,
my shrug emoji.
Okay.
last summer I was unemployed for 4 months. I was laid off, and
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was able to find a job after 4 months, thank goodness. And it really led me to totally revamp my resume. It had previously been over 2 pages. I have like 20 something years of experience of working, and it was really hard for me to get rid of stuff at the beginning of my career, because I just felt like, oh, I did it should go on there. But I cut it off, so now I've only have like maybe like 10 or 12 years of experience, but it's all like directly relevant to what I do now. So kind of related to that, like only have things on there that are directly relevant to what you want to pursue. I don't have like all the things you did along the way.
Yep.
And that really helped me get it down to 2 pages. Also with I totally reformatted it, which I hadn't probably done in
Gotcha.
I want to say since I first did my resume over 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'll throw out, I've been using a 2-pager for well over a decade, so don't know. I haven't A/B tested it, so I don't know whether it could be more or less successful.
I started laughing when you asked that question, Lindsay, because I come from higher education where it's normal to see a 5 to 10 page CV, right? Like that is the standard. But when you asked that question, I reflected on the times I've been a hiring manager, and I for sure don't read past page 3. Like that's my maximum. So I'm breaking my own rule.
No, and I
My,
think, yeah, sorry, what was,
I was going to say my mentor or UX research mentor has been in the field for over 20 years, and his resume is 1 page. And
okay.
he told me don't make it more than 1. And he's been a UX hiring manager too. So
I'm
he
going to put
said
an underline on that then.
give me, yeah, you
Has
got
he
10
been,
seconds.
maybe
So
this is too off topic, but has he
No.
been at like the same place for a long time? Because I feel like that makes it, no?
no,
Okay.
he's been
He's hopped around.
6 or 7 places. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But 6 or 7 places in over 20 years is like not that many. I don't know.
I was gonna say I've done
Oh.
that in the last like 4 years.
I've been
Yeah.
I've been at like 15 places over 20 years. So
But you made me think you can get away with a resume that's that short if you have a strong portfolio, right? So a do is have a portfolio and link it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. He suggested putting the resume, what he does, he has the resume and the portfolio as one PDF and links it so that they don't get separated.
Yep. That's a cool, yep. Anybody have anything else that they want to add in here?
I wanted to add one comment, which
Yeah.
is that the last time that I was actually in the position where I needed to go out and apply for a job, I would say actually having a full page resume was used by maybe 5% of the HR departments that I applied for. They all wanted me to fill out an online form and put every single thing that was in my resume into their form. And
awful.
it was a terrible experience.
Torture.
And I don't know if there's any way around that trend for HR departments to basically offload the resume reading to some kind of computer, which then, or probably AI now, that's saying, I think this candidate's better.
This is a beautiful segue, Joshua, like a beautiful segue.
Why don't we, on that note, I will.
Yes. And I'll respond to that directly, and then we'll talk about artificial intelligence in a little bit more in depth. But unfortunately, I agree with you. I am regularly both a hiring manager and someone that is doing advising. And unfortunately, I don't think that the system of which you type all of your experiences that are on your resume into a computer generated form is going away, largely in part because many organizations across industries are using artificial intelligence, AI, as part of their job search and finding and sourcing the best candidates for positions that they're applying for. One note I will say about that is often in those types of systems, there are opportunities for you to attach supplemental materials. So sometimes they'll ask for a cover letter, for instance, and that's sometimes where people will upload that. Or it could be a place for you to also upload your resume if you feel like you weren't able to capture all of the information that's on your document in quite as meaningful of a way. So that's definitely something that I recommend. But artificial intelligence and using it in the context of looking for positions can actually be helpful. People are talking a lot about artificial intelligence now in a concerned way, like, what is this? Should I be worried? And often Lindsay and I, in the work that we do, we spend a lot of time reassuring folks that actually artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, and the applicant tracking software or systems that most people are putting in all of their information as they're applying for a job, like those types of things have been around for a number of years, and likely are, continuing to increase as time goes on. But they can actually be very helpful, especially if you are able to use them to your advantage and really be able to write your experiences in a compelling way that's being captured in the artificial using AI. So common places where AI is seen are through those applicant tracking systems that we were just talking about, like putting all of your information in as you're applying for a job. They're also seen as part of job agents. So, when you're using different job boards for looking for positions and you're putting in your parameters, and then you're having these sites send you jobs that match your parameters, that's of course using artificial intelligence. And then also some of the job boards that it gets smarter as you use them. So then they start pulling positions based on previous searches. And so these are things that make the job search much easier, but also understandably can be pretty arduous as you're putting in your applications. One thing that we recommend generally is that while parts of applicant tracking systems can be really frustrating, because it's not going away, we really recommend finding a way to use them to your advantage. And one way to do that, and this came up initially, is using the keywords from job descriptions to talk about your experiences in meaningful ways. And so sorry, I have a cat that's wanting to join in. As you're thinking about your experiences and what you've done, look to see what common themes are coming up for you as you're searching for different job descriptions, and making sure that if you have those experiences, that you're putting that into your job search. A couple things that I like to recommend as it relates to AI is that it shouldn't make folks feel worried, but it's definitely helpful, especially with the increase in uptake of people using ChatGPT for resumes, cover letter creation, is just to be mindful of authenticity. And so while ChatGPT can be a helpful place to start with resume and cover letter creation, you want to make sure that your true self and your authenticity is coming through, so that people aren't inviting one person to interview and then having another person to show up essentially by virtue of how you're talking and describing your experiences. And then also just another quick thing to bring up too is that often we're seeing artificial intelligence as it relates to first round of interviews. So sometimes that screening round might be done by a computer system that's trying to get enough information to determine whether or not you're able to move forward or not. And we can talk a little bit about that during the Q&A, or additionally through the presentation too, about how to navigate those in a meaningful way as well.
Great, thank you. And I think as we talked a little bit about crafting strong action statements, and I think you also alluded to this in the first do's and don'ts about pulling not only from the job description, but also from the organization's mission statement to really gain an understanding of what their, as you have said, like, what is their bottom line? What are they doing? What are they making? And reviewing the job description in absolute detail. I know that as you're looking, you're just triaging and you're looking, doing quick reads of a lot of different job descriptions, but then trying to infer exactly what they're looking for in a candidate, and then take a look at each of the job descriptions and looking for common themes. You could also highlight technical skills or things that are important that they seem to really kind of hone in on. You might also have already noticed this, that not all job descriptions are created equally, I like to say, because you can kind of gather a whole bunch, use your own skills as in UX as to do market research about what they are looking for. Because there may be a skill in company B's job description that company A could really find useful. So adding that in there, the more you apply, the more you start to weave these skills and experiences and programs needs into your entire application. It's just going to get stronger and stronger over time. One of the things that we talk about are making the most of those bullet points that we have, and the bullet points below below each of your position. You don't have to use the same amount of bullet points for each experience. typically the one that the experience that you've had the last should have more, because probably that's one that you've had the most responsibility, or might most likely be more relevant to the position that you're hiring for. And we can dig into the nuance a little bit later, but I just wanted to kind of hone in on the bullet point itself. There's a formula that that can be really helpful for making sure that you've packed the most into each sections. I love the advice that was given earlier about both quantifying and qualifying in that statement. But if you think about the three parts, is a verb, a skill, and example. So the verb is, what are you doing? And to keep that in the active tense. So stay away from any ing that might be a passive tense. So I facilitated, I managed. It wants to be in the past tense if it's for past experience, and present for ones that you're currently working on. Then there's a skill. What are the skills that you gained, strengthened, demonstrated in your current or former position? And these are really things that are perfect for weaving in from the job description. And then example of how you demonstrated that skill in the particular position. And that can be both a qualifying and a quantifying example. That is what we'll talk about this later, but utilizing AI or ChatGPT to start some of these bullet points can be really helpful, but that example at the end can be as Lauren mentioned, a really great way to show authenticity and to show that this is specific to you and only you, which can help you stand out.
So when you're thinking about crafting a resume, cover letters, application documents, and you're embarking on your job search, as you're thinking about putting together compelling application documents, these two questions, why them and how you can be helpful to them, should really be at the focal point as you're thinking about describing your experiences in the best way. Because as many of you know, throughout the job process, you might be one of many that are applying for a position. And so if there are ways that you can customize your documents, particularly your cover letter, to talk a little bit about telling your story in terms of experiences and skills that you have, but then taking that and customizing it to why you would be a good fit for that particular job at that particular company, which is why researching the organization, the mission statement, the work that they're doing can be really, really helpful. And by thinking about these two questions, you can really demonstrate how your particular background can be of help to them. I'll say, from being a hiring manager personally, is that we feel just as excited when we hire someone as the person who's been hired feels to have gotten the job. And so from a hiring manager perspective, it's helpful to hear a little bit about how the work that you've done is going to be an asset and to be a benefit to me. And sometimes a lot of people, when Lindsay and I are meeting with folks about their own job search, oftentimes we'll hear, well, of course that will be helpful to them. They're filling a position. Of course, this background with the related experiences I have, of course that will be helpful to this position. But it's not always that clear. So any opportunity you have to really connect the dots to say these experiences are going to be a benefit to you can be a really, really meaningful way to tell a compelling story. And writing a strong resume with those strong bullet points is just one part of the equation, but those cover letters and portfolios and other things that are part of your application package can also be really meaningful ways to demonstrate that too, and to also tell that story in a really clear and linear way.
So I won't go through all of this, but this gives you some ideas of ways that you can kind of decode the job description, really tie those to your own experiences. Again, read carefully, know your customer, know who you're writing for, know your market, what they think, and to kind of extrapolate what they think is going to be important to them. And then also what makes you unique, to kind of draw on that. And sometimes I think that's really helpful to just reflect on that, as we talked about in the beginning, just to you might have noticed this slide about kind of free writing about your experiences. The resume is we want you to be clear, concise, and compelling, and it's a very short, tiny little blurb about each of your things, but sometimes it's often helpful to do the exact opposite and just free write about, and take some time out of this to really reflect on who you are as an employee and what you've done.
So thinking, we've talked a little bit, broadly about what makes for a strong resume and things that you should and shouldn't put on there. But here are some content tips just as you're thinking about resumes as a whole. And I'll also just pause briefly to say that I have a daughter who's just under 2, who will probably be coming through the door shortly and probably not that great of a mood. They just went out for some ice cream. So I apologize in advance for that. But one thing that we recommend is, again, using that verb skill example formula to really think about your experiences in meaningful ways. Make your content relevant from using the terms from job descriptions, as we've mentioned, and really elevate your bullet points to match what they're looking for. Oftentimes having a related experience section on your resume can be really, really helpful because it will automatically go into that applicant tracking system that you have experiences that are relevant to what they're looking for. So that can be really helpful. One thing that we talk a lot about with people is that all information and all experiences are wonderful, but not all experiences are treated equally. And so as you're thinking personally about your own professional experiences, really thinking about what have I done the most of that's going to make me the most benefit for the position that I'm applying for. And then also recognizing that AI is such a big part of the application process, utilizing those keywords, those themes that you're seeing during your job search. We talked a lot about your qualifying and quantifying information, keeping things positive. One thing that can be just a really tiny thing, but really make a big difference is that sometimes when people are talking about experiences that maybe they haven't been the best experience, so maybe you were asked to take on a lot of responsibilities. And as a result, you were able to get a lot of experiences, but that situation in and out of itself was really stressful and not how you had hoped. Really trying to frame your bullet points from a positive perspective, especially when you're applying for positions. How did this experience, while it might not have been pleasant at the time, how has that helped prepare me for what's next? And so thinking a little bit about, just making sure that your experiences are spoken about in a positive light can be helpful too.
And then we talked a little bit about this before, but one of the things that can kind of mess up applicant tracking systems and really be unfair are, the formatting. So it's like nothing that you've actually written or the content. And for this, whoops, like using some of these things, maybe we can talk more in depth about them, but like utilizing simple fonts, sticking with one column. This is one that I think can be be a hang up for a lot of people with applicant tracking systems. Oftentimes they're still quite simple, so sometimes they may not read more complex formatting such as 2 columns. Which can look pretty. There are lots and lots of templates online that have 2 columns. They tend to kind of look nice, but they actually can be a huge bear when it comes to how they're actually perceived. Sometimes one column is missing or is not read. So like an entire column just disappears, or sometimes the applicant tracking system can kind of go across the column, so they pick up on the lines going down. So it's really, really challenging to make sure that your information is actually going to read in a coherent sort of fashion. Like spelling out acronyms, sometimes acronyms where everybody knows what those are, including in your industry. Sometimes AI or the ATS can't pick those up. The same with headers, footers. Sometimes those can get wonky, images, tables, pictures. The other thing that I will say is that I know a lot of people will have really beautifully designed resumes, and those are ones that are perfect for being for certain kind of formats, like on your website, that really kind of fits within your aesthetic. Or if you print it out and bring it to an actual interview, an actual person, but in terms of talking about ATSs, or if you upload anything, just assume that it's going to be viewed by an ATS, even if it's a small organization. You can test it by saving as a plain text file to see how that might translate. Lastly, I'll just say PDFs really work to help preserve your formatting, but docs are best for ATSs. But I mean, again, reading the fine print will be really helpful for you, because they may actually kind of stipulate what their applicant tracking system prefers.
I agree with all of that. And then also thinking a little bit, just a quick note about the two-column resume, is that oftentimes people will tell me that they have to have a 2-page resume because of all of the things that they have to put on there. But often when I look at a resume, I find that a 2-page resume often can be a 1-page resume, just by making some of those general formatting edits that Lindsay just spoke about. So some other common mistakes that we see frequently are within each section. So related experience, leadership experience, you want to organize your experiences in reverse chronological order. So your most recent experience first, working your way backwards. As Lindsay mentioned, avoiding the passive tense, verbs ending in ing, ensuring that you're checking your tenses for consistency. So if you're currently in a position, present tense, previous positions, past tense. Avoiding I's or pronouns in your bullet points. So I always laugh with folks about this, because it's a document all about you, but the word I shouldn't be in it. That verb skill example formula that Lindsay chatted a little bit about, what did I do, what skills did I gain, and how did I demonstrate that, can be a really helpful way for you to talk about your experiences meaningfully without the pronoun use. And a lot that part of that is it helps you describe your experiences in the best way, but also, when folks refer to, assisted them with work, an applicant tracking system isn't going to know who them is. And so really spelling out and providing those details can be really, really helpful. And then just being conscious of your repetition with verbs. So not having demonstrated, or utilize. So making sure that you're having some variation in how you're talking about your experiences can be really helpful.
Again, I'm going to send this to, but these are some additional resources that might be helpful to you. And then as a couple of final takeaways, we talked a little bit about free writes. We know that, as we heard from one person, it was 4 months of the job search, and to really kind of understand that this can be a real roller coaster, and giving yourself time and space to process, including finding a sounding board, and also giving yourself time to have that reflection, and to be able to narrate your own personal story. And I think a lot of that, and help, as Lauren said, to contextualize that in a positive way. I think it's very easy to feel a bit down on yourself about, like, hey, what's going on here? And it can feel very personal, and that's totally understandable. And recognizing and actually building a really strong application can actually be quite empowering, to be able to mention all of the good things that you've done. And the best antidote to the applicant roller coaster is definitely sending another application. Thinking about cover letters is Lauren mentioned, sometimes that's not asked for, but don't pass up on the chance to write a really nice tailored one, because that can really show your interest in the company and answer that why them. Another good tip is to send a thank you email day of an interview. If not, also having some, like actual thank you notes that you send out to the company. And I think last of all, I would say, like, remember what makes you you, and that includes like what you can do to kind of take care of yourself and keep doing the things you enjoy. So that I think is it. I wanted to share, this is Google's, if you Google the worst resume ever, I think it's actually kind of genius. I adore it. It also flies in the face of a lot of what we've said today, but I think it's a lot of fun. So I encourage you to take a peek at that. Ever Google the worst resume ever, and you will see this gem. But I just want to say thank you for having us. And as you know, Emily and Lauren have mentioned, like we're here to answer any of your questions, and hopefully we can be really helpful for you.
Thank you both. So as I mentioned, I'm actually going to stop the recording now because I want everyone to feel comfortable talking about their personal experiences. I've also enabled sharing for everyone. So if you want to bring up a resume or portfolio and say, hey, why didn't this work? Like, let's do it. Let me hit stop.